Good morning. Good morning, everybody who's here with us. Welcome, new faces, and those that are watching us live on YouTube. It's a beautiful day, and we are in the month of December, which brings the rebirth of Jesus. So we should keep that in mind every day during the month of December, that this is a celebration of the rebirth of Jesus Christ's birth, not concentrating so much on Santa Claus and toys and all that, but you can do that too. Hopefully, as some of you may or may not know, Becerra de Meneses is a nonprofit organization. Welcome. We're 501c3, and what that means is that we function 100% through donations and volunteers. Nobody here receives any type of remuneration, but we do receive a lot of blessings. If you would like additional information about our Becerra home, you can call 305-477-4148 or send an email to info@spiritist.com. Our website is www.spiritist.com. And today's December 9th. As we said, we do transmit live, so we ask you to please put your cell phones on silent, vibrate, or turn them off, whatever you prefer, so that it doesn't interrupt when we're transmitting. And if you would like to go and look at past gospels, you can go to www.youtube.com/Becerra Miami. We transmit at 10 o'clock in English and 11:30 either in Spanish, Portuguese, or Portuñol, right? And our radio is radio.spiritist.com. You can go in there. That's 24/7 and functions on podcasts. You can listen to English, Spanish, or Portuguese lectures. Select whatever you want to hear 24/7. We have our own beautiful Anisi here, who's in the back of the room, who has a beautiful voice. And today we're going to have the blessing to hear our dear Ch.XXI, that we lovingly call Ch.XXI, with much love, because he's a very special spirit. And he speaks to us through the spirit of Emmanuel in chapter 115 of the book, Our Daily Bread. And it's entitled The Gate. So Jesus said again, "Truly I say unto you, I am the gate for the sheep." And Jesus was speaking to us through John in chapter 10, verse 7. It is not enough to embody the gentleness and tenderness of a sheep in order to receive the kingdom, the divine kingdom. The sheep must recognize the gate of redemption with the necessary discernment, and they must watch their step and disregard the appeals of an inferior order that appear by the wayside. From this, we can conclude that in order to be victorious, prudence must be combined with caution regarding the direction to follow. The loss of a flock does not always result from an animal attack, but because the sheep have wandered carelessly beyond natural barriers in search of their own pasture, deaf from the shepherd's voice, or blind to the protective gate. How many sheep are attacked unexpectedly by the dreadful wolf because they are fascinated by neighboring green pastures and wander off their own path, breaking down fences in answer to destructive impulses. This is what happens to people in the course of their lives. How many noble spirits have lost precious opportunities due to their own imprudence. Even though they possess admirable qualities, they sometimes become arbitrary and capricious. In the majority of cases, they are like virtuous and useful sheep who, after acquiring a number of ennobling traits, forget the gate they are supposed to reach and break the necessary and beneficial discipline in order to hand themselves over to the devouring wolf. So for reflection about today's reading. In today's reflection, Emmanuel mentions how we must watch our steps and not pay attention to the inferior distractions we will encounter along the road of our lives. To be victorious in life, we need to be prudent and cautious when making our decisions and choosing the direction we must follow. Sometimes, like sheep, we go the wrong way, but not because we are being attacked by a wolf, but rather because we are fascinated by the neighboring green pastures when we follow our destructive impulses. Let us all remember the Lord's words. Truly I say unto you, I am the gate for the sheep. And now we ask that you join us in prayer. Our dear Father and our dear brother and teacher, Jesus Christ, our dear Dr. Becerra de Meneses, Mary, our spiritual guides and our mentors, our familiar spirits and our guardian angels. We thank you truly for all the preparations that you did so that we could come here today and receive a gospel that is true, that despite all our imperfections and despite all our temptations, you still blessed us with the road to you, which is Jesus. We ask you, dear Father, that you bless our dear Marcelo so that he can give us the gospel as interpreted through his kind, noble spirit. We also ask, dear Lord, that you bless all those that are in need. And all these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. So it's with great joy that we have Marcelo Neto with us today. He's the other half. Last week we had Andrea, his beautiful wife. And Marcelo right now is the president of the Spiritist Federation of Florida. He's very, very active along with Andrea in the Spiritist movement, not only here in the States, but in Brazil and worldwide. He travels in the name of the doctrine, and he's already frowning, telling me to stop uh, talking about him. So it's with great pleasure that we invite our brother Marcelo, who's going to speak to us on chapter 21 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. There will be false Christ and false prophets. And it goes good with what we just read about Chico, too.
Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here. And I would like to make this lecture very simple, as if we are doing a gospel at home among family members. So we can simply imagine that we are sitting very close by each one. I'm going to read a few passages about this specific chapter, chapter 21 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. And let's make a few comments about it, because that specific chapter it is very important in nowadays, in days of transition. We see things happening outside, people proclaiming themselves as to be the savior of the world, and the real savior, I think, is the one who saves himself, herself. So the work that we have to do in order to have the sympathy of the good spirits and the Almighty God, it's for us to work day by day inside of each one, so we can acquire something so precious, so profound, which is the self-discover of ourselves. And this takes a lot of time, a lot of efforts, a lot of lives. We're not going to achieve this in one lifetime. I'm sure about this. I heard Maggie mentioning many titles, many things that I have at the present moment, and sometimes I cut myself like, oh my God, I know so much. Why I still doing this? Why I am like this yet? So I am finding that this is a constant working process within. In that specific chapter, that's the control, yeah. There will be false Christs and false prophets. We will see one of the first items, the tree is known by its fruit. And there's a passage in the Gospel of Luke, the passage also mentioned in the Gospel of Mark, and in the Mark, Luke, and Matthew exactly. And I'm going to read for you, and it's pretty much self-explanatory. But then Allan Kardec brings us an explanation about these three passages brought by these three evangelists. The first one, brought by Luke on chapter 6. The tree that produces bad fruit is not good, and the tree that produces good fruit is not bad. For each tree is known by its own fruit. Figs cannot be picked from thorn bushes, nor can bunches of grapes be cut from briars. A good man brings forth good things from the good treasure of his heart, whereas the evil man takes evil things from the evil treasure of his heart. But the mouth speaks from what fills the heart. It's pretty much self-explanatory. But Matthew gives something else. Beware of false prophets who come to you covered in the skins of sheep, but who on the inside are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruit. Can grapes be picked from thorn bushes or figs from briars? Thus, every tree that is good produces good fruit, and every tree that is bad produces bad fruit. A good tree cannot produce bad fruit, nor can a bad tree produce good fruit. Every tree that does not produce good fruit will be cut down and cast into the fire. Hence, you will know them by their fruit. This is really interesting. I heard a few news recently about mediums, not in a very way they were behaving. We are not sure if this is true or not, but many investigations are being held recently, and we can feel like, oh my God, so these men called mediums, called prophets, called like saints by the way that we make this interpretation, are having this awful conduct among their followers. And in that specific chapter, we can see a few answers for this. That's why it's so important for us to study profoundly this specific body of knowledge that we call Spiritism. There's one specific book, which is the second book of the codification. It's a medium's book. And if I'm not mistaken, on chapter 14, item 176, there's like a list, actually, chapter 14, there's a list of mediums, and Allan Kardec brings the types of mediums described in that specific book. And one of the mediums, I think it's the item number 7, it's the mediums that perform cures. Have you all heard about this? Mediums that goes there, make operations, open your belly, do stuff, and says like they perform like cures. If someone, you understand what I'm trying to say. But that specific medium, sometimes, not sometimes, and the spirits bring us that they're always, when their intentions are good, they are always being assisted by good spirits. But these specific mediums are not perfect. They can fail. They can make mistakes. And making mistakes, the company that he or she will bring to them, it's not a good company. So it means like the assistance no longer from the good spirits. The assistance will be from the frivolous, the malevolent spirits that wants to make confusion among everybody. But we're going to go there. So going forward with this reading that we are having here, there is one specific item of the gospel, item 4 in the same chapter, that brings the mission of the prophets. And for us to understand what is the prophet, how we understood prophets, the meaning of prophets back then. And it says here that prophets are commonly perceived as possessing the gift of being able to review the future, so that the words prophecies and predictions have become synonyms. However, in its evangelical sense, the word prophet has a broader meaning. It applies to all who have been sent by God with the mission of instructing humankind in revealing hidden things and mysteries of the spiritual life. Hence, a person can be prophet without making predictions. So, and then he keeps going, giving the explanation. And then on the next item, prodigies performed by false prophets, because we constantly think like, how come someone with such power could be sent by God and making mistakes, doing something that it's not according to the main objective of helping others, giving instructions to the people. For example, we have beautiful examples of beautiful prophets. For example, when Moses conducted the people of Israel through the desert, going to one specific place, he was a medium, receiving by the high of all spirits and ultimately from God, the instructions for him to conduct all the people of Israel, to go to a better place. So these are this is one of the very important prophets in human history, in the Judeo-Christian tradition. And he is considered the first revelation that we have. But how come prodigies performed by false prophets can deceive so many? And it's written over here, false Christs and false prophets will appear, who will perform great prodigies and amazing things to the point of deceiving the elect themselves. These words provide the true meaning of the term prodigy. According to theological definition, prodigies and miracles are exceptional phenomena that occur outside the laws of nature. Since the laws of nature are work of God exclusively, God could obviously derogate from them if so desire. Okay? Makes sense. But, however, simple common sense says that God could not have possibly given unevolved and perverse beings a power equal to the divine power, and even less the right to undo what God has done. Jesus could not have consecrated such a principle if, according to the meaning it has been attributed to these two words, the spirit of evil has the power to perform such prodigies to the point that the elect themselves are deceived. The result would be that, being able to do what God does, prodigies and miracles are not the exclusive privilege of those sent by God. Moreover, they would not prove anything, since nothing would distinguish the miracles performed by saints from the miracles performed by the bad spirits, the devil, as is here written in the gospel according to Spiritism. It is therefore necessary to look for a more rational meaning for these two words. And he keeps going. To an educated common folk, every phenomenon with an unknown cause comes across as supernatural, extraordinary, and miraculous. Once the cause is known, it is realized that the phenomenon, as extraordinary as it may seem, it's nothing other than the application of a natural law. So in this manner, the circle of supernatural events shrinks to the extent that the circle of scientific knowledge broadens for the advancement of their ambitions, interests, and dominations. Humans in all eras have exploited certain knowledge they possess in order to give themselves the prestige of a supposedly superhuman power or a supposed divine mission. These are the false Christs and false prophets. The spreading of enlightenment destroys their credit, and that is why their number decreases, because people are becoming more enlightening, more aware of these natural laws that before we didn't have the proper explanation. So the fact that they perform what in the eyes of certain people come across as prodigies is not, therefore, the sign of a divine mission, since it could result from knowledge that anyone may acquire or from special organic faculties that most unworthy persons may possess, as well as the most worthy persons. True prophets are recognized by more serious and exclusively moral characteristics. What they are bringing here is also in the medium's book, we will learn that we're all mediums in a certain degree. And this is more like a spiritual faculty that's the organs envelop. So it's an organic faculty that all human beings possess in a certain degrees. Of course, as I mentioned on the chapter 14 of the Gospel of the Medium's book, on the item 7, the mediums that perform this kind of cures, they have, of course, this kind of potentiality. I'm not sure if I can use this word. This kind of magnetism, this kind of energy that are potentialized by the good spirits if their intention is good. In order, for example, to solve a problem, an organic problem of someone. For example, Tony has a cold. And a code is very simple, but just make this thing very simple. And Aide is a medium that performed this kind of cure. And she goes to Tony. And Tony is like suffering from this cold for a very long time. But because she's that specific medium, she is with a beautiful intentions to help others. And because of the faith of Tony, it's just like the plug. She, in prayer, with her own energy, with her intentions to help Tony, and Tony willing to receive because of his faith is enormous. Thank God. In God. Exactly. So next lecture will be Tony giving us more detailed explanations. But that's exactly what it is. So it's the perfect marriage, the perfect combination. So Tony can be healed, and Ida is performing what is she supposed to do. So this is something really interesting. But bad people, not bad people, people of not very moral standards, with bad intentions, they also have these faculties. And these faculties could be given to God, from God, to the high order spirits, in order for us to advance our lives. Let's assume that I have, for example, I commit many mistakes during the course of my life, my existences. And previous this one, I says like, oh my God, I need to speed up a little bit my evolution. And the good spirits programming my next reincarnation says, okay, I'm going to give you a fantastic tool so you can help others and help yourself. You're going to be a ostensively medium. And then here comes Tony, an ostensively medium with superpowers. Superpowers in quotes, because everything is explainable by the natural laws. For example, if I use a cell phone 100 years ago, maybe I would be burned in the stake, because it says like, this guy is a witch. How come he can talk to someone in the other side of the world using a device like this? Nowadays, we know through electromagnetism, through waves, this is a perfectly explainable phenomena that telecommunications and physics can explain very well. The same way, mediumship and all these abilities are very well explained by the Spiritist teachings. So we can understand that everything has an explanation that before we didn't know about it. And there's something else that I want to bring it to you. And it says, like, do not believe in one of the passages of the first letter, the first epistle, the first letter from John. I don't remember the city that he sent this letter. Well, it's in chapter 4 and 1. He explains us, dearly beloved, do not believe all spirits, but test whether the spirits are from God, for many false prophets have appeared in the world. So, spirit phenomena, bringing the explanation from this portion. Spirit phenomena, far from giving credibility to false Christs and false prophets, as some people love to say, have much to the contrary, come to deal them a final blow. Do not ask Spiritism for prodigies or miracles, since it formally declares that it does not perform them, just as physics, chemistry, astronomy, geology have revealed the laws of the physical world. Spiritism has revealed other unknown laws that govern relations between the corporeal and the spirit world, and which are laws of nature as much as are the laws of science. By providing an explanation for a certain order of phenomena that have been incomprehensible until now, Spiritism destroys what still remain in the realm of the extraordinary. So this is another explanation, and depending of the level of morality that we have, that we are acquiring, and sometimes we don't have this super moral standard in terms of like morality, but we are putting effort to transform ourselves. And this effort transforming that we put into our lives, transforming our lives into something more sacred. When I say sacred, I want you to understand It means like, because life per se is sacred. When we live among people, respecting one another, forgiving with indulgence, with tolerance, we are becoming our life a living example of the sacred, the sacral, how can I say, my God? I would like you guys to help me out. How can we say something like transforming our lives in something more sacred? Okay, that's right. That's right. So when we do this movement, we acquire the company of the benevolent spirit. And the benevolent spirits are going to give us some instructions according to the divine plans of God. And to the contrary, if I am living my life, and I love this expression, how Tony says, like, living the vida loca. How you say this? Viviendo la vida loca, living like I don't care. So what kind of company we are going to bring in terms of the spirituality? Of course, we have this, we're going to attract the sympathy of the good spirits or the bad spirits, it depending how we conduct our lives. So this is really important. So that's why do not believe in all spirits. It was directly connected with how we are conducting our existence nowadays. I there's one thing, it's really interesting. It's a personal case that I want to bring it to you guys. 2 days ago, I woke up. This is really interesting. I woke up and I mentioned to Andrea is my wife, that a car crosses in front of me and he likes doing some kind of like turns, and I put my feet on the brake, afraid and being cautious about like not getting my car hit to this one. He says, oh my God, this could be a sign. It could be simply something that I saw on the TV. My subconscious was like archived and something like that. So I was thinking about that. And it could be like a sign from a good spirit. I was coming over to this lecture on 8:36, 30 minutes ago, and exactly the same scene appeared before my eyes. The car in front of me, something really, I was, oh my God. And I immediately remembered the dream that I had. So I was driving very cautiously. This could be some kind of advice that the benevolent spirit says, like, pay attention, because you're going to the spirit center, you're going to say something that maybe the bad spirits are now wanting for you to spread, and says like, okay, pay attention. So we have to be cautious about the signs that we receive, not being fanatical, because sometimes we are being fanatical of everything that we receive. But the good spirits sometimes bring us some kind of notice in advance so we can conduct our lives in a much better way. But let's not believe in all spirits. Sometimes we are in a moment of our lives with a lot of anxiety, with a lot of anger, with a lot of, so we are, consequently, we are going to probably, I'm not saying this is 100%, but we could bring the company of the bad spirits, and then potentializes the sentiments, the bad sentiments that we are having in that moment. That's why being prudent, being tolerant, being good, and benevolent are the golden rule to live our lives. So, there's something else that I want to bring you. False prophets. This is the way you must judge, my brothers and sisters. The deeds are what you must examine. If those who say they are vested with divine power are accompanied by all the signs of such a mission, that is, if they possess the highest degree of the eternal and Christian virtues, charity, love, indulgence, the goodness that reconciles all souls, these are truly messengers of God. And they says something else. That, as we mentioned before, good examples are what characterizes an individual. As we read in the beginning of this talk, the tree is known by the fruits it produces. We have to pay attention what kind of fruit we're picking from that specific tree. And in the gospel, they have something else here that I wanted to read. It says, those who by their example and counsels must save humankind, quickly heading toward its perdition and roaming tortuous roads, we will be above all else modest and humble. Run from those who display one atom of pride, as if they were contagious lepers, very strong, the words here, who infect everything they touch. Remember that all individuals bear on their brow, but more especially on their actions, the stamp of their greatness or decadence. Go forth, therefore, my beloved children. Advance without hesitation, without ulterior motives, along the blessed course you have undertaken. Go forth always without fear. Courageously distance yourself from anything that could hinder your progress toward the eternal objective. O travelers, you will be in the darkness and pain of trial for only a little while longer, if you will allow your hearts to follow the gentle doctrine that has come to reveal to you the eternal laws and to satisfy all the aspirations of your soul regarding the unknown. And he keeps going because this is a message brought by a spirit called Louis in Paris, in Bordeaux, it's a city of France, in 1861. And it brings something else that I wanted to bring it to you guys, the characteristics of the true prophet. It says, like, the command, it says, Allan Kardec brings us something that makes sense for us and we can relate in our lives. It says, like, the command of an army is entrusted only to a competent general capable of leading it. So do you think that God would be less prudent than humans? Talking about the characteristics of a true prophet. Be certain that God entrusts important missions only to those he knows are capable of fulfilling them. For great missions are heavy burdens that would crush individuals who are too weak to bear them. As in all matters, the master must know more than the apprentice. In order to enable humankind to advance morally and intellectually, individuals who are superior in morality and intelligence are required. That is why missions are always entrusted to spirits who are already very advanced after having completed their trials in previous lifetimes and who now incarnate with this objective. If they are not superior to the environment in which they must act, their efforts will be fruitless. That said, we must conclude that the true missionaries of God must justify their mission by their ascendancy, virtues, and greatness, and the results and moralizing influence of their deeds. Let us draw a further conclusion, the Spirit says. If by their character, virtues, and intelligence they are either beneath the role they attribute to themselves or the personage under whose name they harbor themselves, they are nothing but histrions of low rank who do not even know how to emulate their model. Another consideration is that most true missionaries of God are unaware of the fact they carry out the mission to which they have been called through the force of their genius, seconded by a hidden power that inspires and guides them without their knowing it and with no premeditated plan. In other words, true prophets are revealed by their actions. They are discovered by others, whereas false prophets present themselves as messengers from God. See the difference? The former are humble and modest, the latter are proud and full of themselves. They speak with arrogance, and like all deceitful persons, always seem fearful or not being believed. So, this is really interesting because we see the characteristics of someone really humble, really modest, and someone that proclaims himself as being, I do anything. I am the savior. I'm this, I'm that. So this is something that we see this, especially in Brazil and many other countries. People, they are proclaiming themselves to be like the superpower mediums. This is really interesting. And I see a few examples in Brazil, very modest, humble individuals in a simple house doing such a beautiful work of love, and they have they don't believe themselves. They don't believe they are like the chosen one. They simply put themselves like, no, we are not, I'm not doing anything. And we are not saying this that because when they say, sometimes it's, oh, I'm nothing. But behind we have proud, we have arrogance, because we want the attentions of others. Oh, he's so humble. But hidden inside, we have a proud man or a proud woman asking for, see how he's so humble, but it's a pride. I heard something that maybe it doesn't have like a lot of meaning in English. I am so proud of my humbleness. Something like that. It makes sense in English? So something like that. I'm so proud of my humbleness. And the true prophet, a true messenger, a true moral individual, they don't proclaim themselves like this. That's why they acquire the company of the good spirits, because the good spirits see this. They see the interior of ourselves. We can hide from everybody, but we cannot hide from God. We cannot hide from God. And gonna reach a day that we're gonna face to face with our conscience, and this veil are going to be open, and sometimes we feel very ashamed of ourselves. There's one book, very interesting book called I'm Back. I'm Back. It's not translated yet to English. And it's about one of the directors of the Spiritist Federation of Brazil. And he was a very active member, director of the Spiritist Federation of Brazil. And he was very important man because he put like many works for the dissemination of the Spiritist teachings. He was ahead of everything, many things. In the books, printing books, putting a lot of effort this and this. And he passed away, he discarnated. And in the other realm of life, he thought he was going to be received with his great light that he thought of. I'm going to be with great light. And the spirit that received him, radiant. And he was like so debil. How can I say this in English? Oh my God. So fragile, so with lack of light. He says, where's my light? Where's my light? Well, you work from outside. You didn't work from within. I don't know if it makes sense to you, says, because sometimes we do great things for outside because we want recognition from the world. But we forget to work in the most difficult and important work in our life, which is within. That's why sometimes we see people with oh my God, he was a benefactor of the world, of humanity, which is very good, excellent. But let's see what is the true intentions of that individual. So what I wanted to say is, what is the true intentions that we have inside? Because I can be, for example, a very rich man, doing a lot of donations, building hospitals, putting money to research in the discovering of disease and stuff like that, with the true intentions to help humanity. But sometimes I can do all of this with the intention to be recognized as a Superman, something like that. So it's a thin line. It's a very thin line. So only the individual and God and our conscience can tell exactly what is the true that it's happening inside of that individual, in that soul. It makes sense. Something like that. Yeah. So keep going. Also, false prophets in the spirit world. The false prophets are not found only among incarnated. This is really interesting too. They're also in much larger numbers found among proud spirits who, under the false appearance of love and charity, sow disunion and retard the work of humankind's emancipation, infiltrating it with their absurd theories, which they make their mediums believe. And to better fascinate those they want to exploit in order to give more weight to their theories. They unscrupulously adorn themselves with names that humans do not pronounce except with respect. So what he's talking is about spirits in the spirit realm, not very well evolved, actually sometimes bad and mean spirits. And because of the medium has the same kind of characteristics deep inside, they get attuned with the same kind of, they have in affinity with the same mediums, the same spirits. We have, like, for example, when someone with bad intentions discarnate, go to the other realm of life, they do not be transformed into angels with wings. They bring all the characteristics, the moral characteristics, to the spirit realm. So sometimes these kind of spirits are frivolous, bad spirits, evil spirits sometimes. And they sometimes make the influence of the mediums who has the same kind of affinity. And this is why we have to pay attention to the messengers they're are bringing from that specific mediums. Not all mediums are have to receive credit from their messages. I know in Brazil, so many books, psychograph, channel by so many mediums. And when we read the message, it says like, oh my God, it looks nice in the beginning, but you have something in the middle that's it proclaims disunion, favoritism, animosity, intolerance. And so we have to pay attention to this because are very rare mediums that are trustworthy. So we can have good material in our lives. So we can follow good things in our lives. So this is really a very thin line because when we don't study a lot, we are simply in the hands of mediums in the media and the books and spiritist centers that doesn't have like an effort to proclaim the study, and we can be misguided to patterns of our lives, not understanding exactly the core of the message. It says like, these are the spirits who sow the seeds of antagonism among groups, who compel them to isolate themselves from each other and to look at each other with suspicion. These alone should be enough to unmask them because by acting in such a manner, they themselves offer the most categorical denial of who they claim to be. Blind are those persons, therefore, who allow themselves to fall into such a blatant trap. Furthermore, there are many other means for recognizing them. Spirits of the order to which they say they belong must not only be very good, but eminently rational as well. So then, pass their theories through the sieve of reason and common sense, and you will see what remains of them. You will agree with me that every time a spirit indicates as a remedy for the ills of humankind or as a means of achieving its transformation, utopian and impracticable things or childish and ridiculous measures, or when it formulates a theory contradicted by the most basic notions of science, it can only be an ignorant and deceitful spirit. On the other hand, you can be sure that if the truth is not always appreciated by certain individuals, it is always appreciated by the good sense of the masses, which is one more criterion. If two principles contradict each other, you will have the measure of their intrinsic worth by seeking out which one enjoys greater significance and more sympathy. In fact, it would be illogical to believe that a doctrine that saw the number of its adherents diminish could be truer than another that sees its number increase. In wanting the truth to reach everybody, God does not confine it within a closed circle. He makes it appears at different points so that everywhere the light may be alongside the darkness. Merciful. So, what he's saying here is these kind of spirits, the false prophets in the spirit world, and I see this because we work in a our work is to try to unify the movement, to bring bridges, to build bridges among the centers, and sometimes we see some specific groups with such a complicated theories. They have like a special medium, a super medium bringing some messages that we have to be very aware if this is not something that indicates a fascination by that specific medium and some kind of group of spirits, malevolent spirits, trying to misguide that specific group. And sometimes when we make comments about that thing, bringing their attention to, let's pay attention, it might be not something really good. They have, depending the level of fascination, they have the tendency to isolate themselves and say like, we are the best. Let's forget about the rest. Well, it makes, okay. We are the best. Let's forget about the rest. So we are the chosen one. We are the superior group. And this is a very common and strategic of the false prophets in the spirit world because they want the attention. They don't want their messages to be examined by rational examination, by moral conduct, by the content. So this is really interesting that we have to pay attention. And it can happen. It could happen anywhere, everywhere. We are about to end our lecture. And we have like much more. And this chapter is really interesting. It has to be studied profoundly with the help of the medium's book. So we can see the quality of the messengers, the message that we receive if we are mediums or from other mediums, and make this analysis and understand that sometimes it's better to reject 10 things is written true than accept one thing that it's not true. So depending, it makes sense what I am saying. It's complicated. What?
Yeah,
One more time. Okay. We have to pay attention at everything that we are receiving. Let's pay attention that not everything that we receive from a medium is true. As we just saw, reading this, many messengers and many messages and many spirits are not with their best intentions. So, just like among human beings incarnate here, we cannot believe in everything. We have to make an analysis, we have to rationalize the thing and understand using our logic and our intelligence to make this
and guidance from above.
and guidance from above. How we do this guidance from above, Tony?
Say a quick prayer. Decision.
Say a quick prayer when the decision has to be made. Very well. Very well. Okay. So Inisi is asking me to do a prayer so we can receive the passes, the benevolent spirits that I'm pretty sure they are here. I am pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Beloved Father, we are all here, understanding that this life that we have is precious, willing to receive the blessings from the above. We gather here in your name, asking, be with all of us. Sometimes during the course of our lives, we feel lost, we feel unworthy, we feel that we need to change our lives. Ask us always to understand that since we are creatures of you, we are destined to be happy. We are destined to be complete, and we are peace of love and tolerance. And on this note, we have a spiritual and divine DNA programmed to one day blossom like a flower and irradiates the light that comes ultimately from you. Help us to pay attention more often in simple things in life, things that we, in this life that we have, we don't pay attention much. But with your guidance, with the protection of the good spirits, your sons and daughters from the above, from the other realm of life, we will receive the blessings, the guidance, and the energies that put us back in track towards the light, the divine light. The benevolent spirits that are here, giving each and every one the passes that we receive, that we need. We ask them, stay with us, help us, give us everything that we need, because you know much better than each and every one of us. Thank you so much, dear Lord. Thank you so much, and so be it.